Hey there, everybody. This is Carrie Hamblen, the CEO and president of the Las Cruces Green Chamber of Commerce, coming to you again with another one of our Zoom chats that are benefits for members of the Las Cruces Green Chamber of Commerce. And I am so excited to have Marie, LaQuerre, Diego. You know, I see you so much on social media and in Zoom, and we have not seen each other in person in a very, very long time, but it is lovely to see your face. How are you doing, my dear?
Doing okay. I was gonna think, yeah, I think the last time we saw each other in person was Pride, which will probably be the next time I get to see you in person.
Exactly, exactly. But that's all right. It's a good occasion to see each other on that, so that's
That's
wonderful.
right.
And
That's right.
and so you are a busy bee, as always, and I love talking to you about the Sith conference. And you know, there's a play on words there because it is the Supportive Innovations for Therapeutic Heroes Conference, but Sith. But there are people who know exactly what that means.
Yes.
So tell me about how you came up with the idea for the Sith conference, and we're talking about the third one now, which means you've got two under your belt. So how'd
Yes.
the conference come about? And then like what were you like super excited about after last year's conference?
Sure. So Sith happened um, because I started to notice that everything good in our state for behavioral health kind of stays up north. Big conferences, professional development opportunities, and quite frankly, our community deserves all of that too.
I
Um,
hear you.
so after waiting for someone else to do it, realizing that was a fool's hope, um, the first year I thought, I'm just going to try this out. We had all local presenters. It was a shoestring budget, trying to figure out if this was something that everyone else wanted or if it was just a pipe dream of mine. Um, and having, last year and our first year, we had between 87 and 110 providers show up for our conference, which just gave me clearly, loudly screaming that like this was needed.
Yeah.
Professional development is part of our licensure requirements. It's something that we have to do to maintain our licensure. And traveling for all of this can be really difficult in terms of taking time off from clients, taking time off from family, the expense of traveling, plus expensive conferences to attend. So I had committed after the first year to do this for 5 years in running to see if it was sustainable, but to see if it was still something that people wanted to have in our community. We have some fantastic therapists in our community and in the southern part of the state.
Oh
And
yeah.
I wanted to make this more attainable and accessible for everybody down south. No hate to our friends in the north by any means.
Oh, I'm good
Um,
with that. I'm good with that. I get real crabby too when people ignore us below Socorro. So I'm glad you're doing it. You're digging your heels in and going, "We are here."
we are here and we are just as important. We're a university city. We're like the second largest city in the state, and we are bypassed for a lot of the opportunities that come our way. So I have taken it upon myself to just pull in some of the people I am fangirls of that have got fantastic information to share with our providers. Um, Last year, we focused on sensory processing and how that appears in children and adults as other mental health illnesses and how to
Mhm.
screen for that. And last year, we made a really concentrated effort on engaging in like interactive sessions. I like to learn when I'm doing something. Please don't lecture at me. I've had that enough in my life. So we've continued that for this year. We've got a lot of hands-on workshops and opportunities for people to learn while actually engaging in self-care, because that's our theme for this year.
Well, so what came first, Sith or the name of the conference, and then it just worked out to spell Sith?
Oh no, Sith happened first, and I had to come up with a name that fits.
And for people who may not know, Sith is a reference to Star Wars.
Star Wars, yes. And as
And
is my group practice name, it's a New
yes.
Hope Therapy Center. I mean, if
Oh,
you know, you
oh,
know.
I didn't realize that. Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
makes sense. And
yeah.
the thing is that what you embrace the nerd,
Oh,
really.
yes.
Yes, and it's like as everybody should, because we've all got a little nerd in us, and we all have somebody that we love who's also. And the thing is that nerd shouldn't be a negative title. It's just somebody who
No.
likes who likes particular things and might be a little bit more focused on learning and books and reading and information. And so I love that you do that. I did not realize New Hope. Oh
Oh,
my God, I'm totally going to look at you
yes.
differently now.
Yes,
That's
and if you
hilarious.
look at our website, like we do a lot of pop culture references. There's a lot of Star Wars references. You know, we want to embrace all of ourselves, right? Part of showing up as a helping provider means showing up as our authentic self. For a long time in my life, being a geek and being a nerd was not accepted. It was not cool. It's coming back. And so we are glad to be a part of this conversation of we embrace whatever you're passionate about.
Right.
Disney or Star Wars or comics or anime or video games. Like we have a provider here for you. And as professional development, we want to help you lean into what you're passionate about because it just makes you a better provider.
Well, that brings up though is like there's this connection that you are able to really articulate and make of the connection of science fiction and role playing and therapy. And how do you do that? I mean, because it makes sense, but I can't articulate why it makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. So with sci-fi and in pop culture, right? What we get from that, whether it's movies, media, books, comic books, video games, it's storytelling.
Yeah.
That's all that is. And so when people are into, whether it's through cosplay or fanfic writing or just wearing shirts that are like Star Wars related or Disney related, like we allow ourselves to tap into the stories that are being shared with us, and it allows us to be really comfortable and maybe vulnerable enough to share our own story. That's a lot of what counseling is, what professional development is, right? It's looking at our own stories and seeing where we've grown and where we would like to continue to grow. Um, Sci-fi and pop culture, they offer us two kind of main things. They offer us escape when things get really difficult, right? Like we can dissociate to the best of them and binge watch our favorite show. And it allows us an opportunity to reflect on stories, whether there are stories of our loved ones, stories of the people that we work with, and be able to look at it and do some like creative problem solving. You know, right now we're doing an inside out parenting group with parents and children.
Oh.
We just finished our Bluey based one, right? Why do we pull from pop culture? One, it buys in the kids, right? If we're talking their language, if we've got characters they're familiar with, therapy doesn't seem like a doctor's visit. And two, this is what our kids are watching. So I don't know if you've watched Bluey. We use Bluey a lot.
I haven't, but
Bluey,
I've watched Inside Out too, and oh my goodness.
right? The depiction of anxiety could not have been done better. Like,
Oh, yes. And
right?
I
And
and I
so
think of like if we would have had those things when we were younger.
I wouldn't have a job, Carrie.
I took my 9-year-old neighbor to go see Inside Out too. Several adults went with this 9-year-old neighbor to go see that because we know that there's an opportunity there for them to experience anxiety and peer pressure and
Absolutely. We
we
took my team. We as an office outing, I paid for my team and we rented a theater. We all went and watched it together with our families
uh-huh.
because we believe in this so much. I mean, yes, a theater full of therapists just like bawling our eyes out, watching
Uh,
Inside Out, and our
oh,
kids
I know,
going,
we were too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well,
so
and it makes sense.
it makes sense. So when I tell you, Carrie, when I feel anxious, it's like that image from Inside Out 2. You know what I'm talking about now. You can get a clear picture of what I am experiencing. That's what using pop culture can do in sci-fi, right? When I tell you I get so mad, I just hulk out. You have an image of what that might look like, right? Versus relying on me to have the words to describe what I'm feeling in a moment where my emotions are raging and my logic brain is turned off.
Yeah. Well, and also when, you think about wearing shirts, I mean, I think about the reason why many of us will wear shirts that have particular sayings. It's because we are trying to non-verbally connect with other like-minded people.
Yes.
And then that is always an opportunity for conversation. And it can be a
Yes.
conversation starter when we may normally feel awkward about going up to that person had we not had this material on that identifies
Absolutely.
what we're doing.
Well, it also helps build communities, right?
Yeah.
If I recognize what you're wearing, I'm like, hey, I love your shirt. You're no longer alone. in liking what you're liking, and you know that it's being appreciated and reciprocated by others.
Yeah.
And especially in the world of mental health, we often feel very alone in what we are dealing with. And that's true even for providers. If providers are in private practice or feel like they're like the weird one in their group, Sith is an opportunity for them to feel supported in the profession by other people going, no, do you. What you bring is so special and unique. We want to support you in doing that. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like what everyone else is doing. We don't want it to be what everyone else is doing because we also know that 90% of the work done in therapy is between the connection between a therapist and a provider. And if all providers are cookie cutters, that's not going to work for everybody.
Yeah. Well, you talk about storytelling, and as we finish up today, storytelling is kind of the focus. You're tapping, what you say is tapping into everyday heroism to foster a culture of genuine connection, compassion, and meaning making for professional helpers. And you've got Dr. Dre Letamendi, who is your speaker. Tell me about her and just like what people can look forward to with the conference.
Yeah, so Drea, I get to call a good friend of mine, which is a blessing. She actually started by someone who I was fangirling over online for a long time before I got the guts to be like, hey, I like your stuff. Would you ever come to New Mexico? This
Mhm.
is actually her third trip out for me to provide education and training to our. She was actually the first one. I want to say it was like 2016 when I first tried to bring someone from the outside in. So she works at UCLA and she focuses on using pop culture and pop media to normalize, destigmatize mental health and to promote healing. So she doesn't work just with mental health providers. She works with all first responders. She just did a big conference for the firefighting department in California after those big wildfires were
Yeah.
raging. So she did a very similar conversation about how it's important to take care of ourselves so that we can continue to help in this helping profession.
Mhm.
We know that stories is how we connect with people, right? When we meet a new person, what we do is share bits of our story to see if it's accepted by the other person and if they're also sharing bits of their story with us.
Mhm.
So we get to see ourselves represented. We also get to just normalize because, again, a lot of this feels like I'm the only one going through this. I can tell you, you're not. And I know that it feels that way, but when we see representation, especially through, Disney's one of our big proponents, like through, Encanto and Coco, when we see, representation of ourselves, I always like to tell people, do you know how many people had to green light that storyline and that character for that story to get put out in this way? You can't be the only one who has this story. So many people connected
Mhm.
to this story, which means it's not just yours. And if
Yeah.
there's hope for them, there can be hope for you.
Yeah. Well, and with this, besides showing that Southern New Mexico is doing a great job in really addressing these issues that we know are going to continue, kind of got exacerbated because of the pandemic.
Sure.
But we've got social media issues that young people are dealing with. There's all sorts of things that are coming out, and I'm grateful that more and more people are accessing, are trying to access services because for many years and in the early 40s, 50s, you didn't talk about this. 60s, you didn't talk about it. And so I just think of how many people could have had much more quality of life had they been able to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we get real life stars like Simone Biles saying like she had a therapy session right before her big event and like speaking out about how helpful that is for her. Yeah, and this year, our hope is to really take care of the providers in our part of the state so that they have the support to continue doing the work that we know needs to get done.
Yeah. And so this conference is for providers and people who are in the behavioral health realm. Am I right? Or is it open to other folks as well?
It's mostly for those in behavioral health. We do have a third day, which we're doing Broken Bowl, and that's open to any healing helping professional. And so that pulls from like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where we're breaking bowls and reestablishing them.
And making them
We're
stronger?
offering, yeah, we're offering it as a healing opportunity for all of those that are in healing professions in our area. to come and give themselves a little bit of space and gratitude for all that they do. And again, just build that sense of community that they're not alone in doing this work.
Wow. I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing. I think it's so important, and I love the approach that you have. The third annual Sith conference, which is the Supportive Innovations for Therapeutic Heroes Conference, is taking place on September 26th through to the 28th at the Las Cruces Convention Center. Ways to register are either above or below on here. Maria, I'm fangirling over you, doll, because I love what you do, and I think it's amazing. And so if you'd like to register for the Sith conference and learn more, you can go ahead and find that information above or below. If you are a member of the Las Cruces Green Chamber of Commerce and would like to do a Zoom chat so that we can talk, private message me here and we'll go ahead and we'll set that up. Maria, I hope I see you before Pride, but I know that you're super busy, so I'm really glad that you're doing what you're doing. And I know that I will see you soon. So thank you so much.
See you soon.
Okay.